What is up, guys? Vincenzo from home of Milan coming back at you once again. Furthermore, whatever. Today we got a lot to dive into, but before we get into this, make sure you guys are subscribed and like the video for more content, and also check us out on TikTok at Home of Milan, Twitter or X at Home of Milan 1, Instagram at Home of Milan, and also add us on bunches at Home of Milan. Without any further ado, guys, let's get into this. But this has probably been the worst game of the season by far. Absolutely terrible because there was a lot of lack of ideas. There were no creativity going forward. There was no bite going forward, right? We just in front of goal, so wasteful, and we just can't create chances. We can't find ourselves a way to get in front of the goal and shoot. It comes down to the player selections, right? We go into this game with the 4-4-2. Obviously, Teo Hernandez gets hurt. We're forced to play with Florenzi at left back, which I have no problems with, right? Problems arise once you go further up the pitch, right? We had obviously just a midfield two, but technically it was a three when we're going forward. So it was Musa at right mid, Krunic followed with Reinders, and then Liao at left mid, and then up top with the dynamic and electric front duo of Giroud and Jovic. And it's so crazy how in 2023 we can go into a match with Jovic and Giroud up top. It was absolutely wasteful. It was not encouraging going forward, and it wasn't electric at all. Because Giroud, we know what Giroud brings, and we know his class. But again, with Jovic, I feel like I'm beating a dead horse here. It's Jovic just not bringing anything whatsoever to this team. I question Pioli with this because Okafor came in and Krunic came out, and I feel like the team looked so much more lively. We were so much more alive, and we were so much more dynamic going forward. It's the subs of Adley coming in. He obviously brings your long range of passing. Granted, Adley did give up the penalty, but there is some question marks around that penalty. But for me, it was a penalty, and I had no issues with it. If Jovic is in this lineup once again, kiss your wishes goodbye of at least getting a result in this game because we've seen what he can bring, and it's absolutely nothing. As for how he played, it was lifeless, right? There was no ambition going forward. To be aggressive going forward, it just wasn't there at all. Liao was isolated on that left-hand side, creating absolutely nothing. And again, Reinders had another poor performance. I feel like this is kind of, a question mark to kind of be asked because this is, a couple games now where Reinders hasn't been himself in the first, half of the season that we've seen. We've seen what Reinders can do, right, against, the Genoa game, in the Bologna game, in the Lazio game, in the Roma game as well. We've seen what Reinders can do. So maybe he's just going through a little rough patch right now, but I'm really hoping he can kind of get it together. And also, he missed another big opportunity again. And there's this whole, kind of thing in the community saying, "Oh, Reinders needs to go. Reinders needs to go," and he's so wasteful in front of goal. And again, this is me beating another dead horse here. I don't think Reinders is, the answer to our problems here. If we score a goal, if Reinders scores a goal, I feel like, yeah, that's great. It's great for his confidence and everything, but I don't think this is the solution to our problems here. I think our problems is our ability to create going forward. I feel like we haven't scored a goal in what seems like a hell of a long time, even though, yeah, we scored two against Napoli, but we didn't score against Juventus. We didn't score against PSG. We lose to an Udinese team who hasn't won all season, and they come to Milan, the San Siro, and they beat us 1-0. And this is, all the alarm bells are ringing right now. And I feel like there's so much chaos going on in Milan right now. There's a lot of question marks for us going forward because we can't create chances. And yes, that does, have to do with Jovic being on and, just how we play with a 4-4-2. And it was absolutely dreadful to watch that first half. Just this whole game was absolutely a terrible watch. And this has by far been our worst game. There was absolutely nothing I could take away from this game. No positives at all. Maybe you can say it was Loftus Cheek coming in, but I mean, if we're counting a player coming into the game as a positive, we got a lot of work to do because going forward, we can't do anything. And even though we got over all these hard games, this was supposed to be the game where we bounce back and then we lose. So this is a massive hump we have to get over. Nothing much to add for this Udinese game, just absolutely terrible. But let's go on to the PSG game happening on Tuesday. We're in the San Siro for this one. It's the game that's gonna define our Champions League run, right? Because if we lose, then we're most definitely in last place, and it's gonna be a massive hill to climb going forward. Milan have to tread carefully because we've seen what PSG can do at full strength in Paris. But I think in the San Siro, I think it's going to be a lot more different because I think Milan will maybe go with a little bit more of a defensive approach because, we saw what happens when we play with the high line, right? We're just going to get killed by Mbappe, Kolomuani, and Dembele. If Milan are going to have a chance to grab something out of this game, I think we got to go with a more defensive approach and hopefully just defensively, we're a lot more compact, we're a lot more sound, and we're a lot more confident defending wise because I feel like, there's been so many games where we've been shaky and we've been, very nervous, right? And especially, against PSG, right? We saw, just silly mistakes, with these three goals that were conceded in that game. It was just so unencouraging defending wise and even going forward, right? We could create, right? Because we had, that Pulisic chance, right? To tie it 1-1. And I think Pulisic knows now he has to be a little bit more selfish. This team learned a lot in that game, and I think it's to have more bite and more ambition going forward and to have that eye for goal. This game is absolutely massive for our Champions League group. To be completely honest, I don't think we're going to win this game. And then that just leaves two more games left to go. And look, it all also depends on what happens in that Newcastle Dortmund game. Because depending on who wins or if they draw, then maybe that opens the door. Because if we somehow, by the grace of God, get a positive result against PSG, then okay, maybe that opens the door. Because let's say they draw, those guys are on 4 points, right? So they go to 5 points. We're at two, we get a win. Then that's second, third, and fourth place all on 5 points. And then that just opens the door for, the game against Borussia Dortmund and against Newcastle. So there's a lot to play for, I think, in these matches. But again, I think I can't see us beating PSG. PSG is too strong of a team. I think it doesn't matter if we're at home in San Siro. I know, they've been teasing, the tifo that they have for Donnarumma, but I just don't see us beating PSG, and I think it's going to be another loss, to be quite frank. I want to know what you guys have to think about the Udinese game, what, we had to change, and also this PSG game. But that'll do it for this episode, guys. Thank you so much for tuning in. I want to know what you guys think. Make sure you guys are following us on all socials. Home of Milan on everything. Home of Milan 1 on Twitter. So, yeah, thank you guys so much for tuning in. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Ciao ragazzi.